Thank you very much, Anne. Now I would like to call upon the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration, the Honorable Charles de Souza. Charles de Souza was first elected to the Ontario Legislature in 2007. He represents the riding of Mississauga South. He was appointed the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration in October 2011. Mr. de Souza previously served as the Minister of Labour before joining the government. Mr. de Souza worked at the RBC Financial Group for more than 20 years. Mr. de Souza graduated from Wilfrid Laurier University in 1982 with an honours BA. In 1991, he completed a fellowship at the Institute of the Canadian Bankers. He earned his MBA at Richard Ivey School of Business at the University of Western Ontario in 1994. Mr. de Souza served as a member of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. He is an ambassador for the Credit Valley Hospital Foundation Special Events, past president of the Federation of Portuguese Canadian Business and Professionals. He has helped coordinate charitable events that support community-based organizations such as the United Way, the Rainbow Ball Federation of Mississauga, and the Community Foundation of Mississauga. In 2003, Mr. de Souza was honored with the Queen's Golden Jubilee Medal in recognition for his outstanding achievements. He also received the Order of Merit from the Republic of Portugal in 2009. Dr. de Souza is a lifelong resident of Mississauga South, and he grew up in Cooksville, attended local schools, and is now raising his family in the Lorne Park area with his wife, Zenny. The Honorable Dr. Charles de Souza.
I'm so pleased to be here, ladies and gentlemen. I've had an opportunity of having a good chat with your keynote speaker today, John Tory, a great leader in our community and someone that I'm extremely proud of knowing and having known for some time. We need champions like John Tory, like many of you who are here today to support this great cause. I'm also privileged to be here alongside my colleague, the Honorable Linda Jeffries, who, as many of you know, represents this area in Brampton, and someone who's been such a leader in our caucus. Having been Minister of Natural Resources, she's now Minister of Labour. She also sits on the Treasury Board and is making some pretty tough decisions that affects all of us as a result of economic times, with the intent of being fiscally responsible but also socially conscious in the things that are important, things like the hospital, the things that you're doing today. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to share in this very important fundraiser, this very worthy cause. You know, I have a simple message, basically to say two things. One is thank you to the Faith of Life Network and all of you for coming together to support this program, these programs. We're talking about 3 hospitals, as well as the future of our community, and also to celebrate you as champions of the community, as champions of your faith, things that are doing so importantly for your future generation. You're here today to help the people of Brampton by raising funds for William Osler's Brampton Civic Hospital. The goal to raise $1 million is admirable, and I want to wish you every success in your efforts because it's critical. Helping the people of Brampton get the care they need in their community is certainly important. Your efforts, however, will help those residents for years to come. And we're here to also celebrate our good fortune, how fortunate we are in Ontario to have many champions like you in vibrant communities around Ontario, including yours. Islam is one of the great faiths of the world. And Ontarians, by and large, are people of faith. We practice many faiths, but just as importantly, we respect the belief of others. And that's what makes our province such a desirable place to settle and to build and to be strong as a community by all of us. Our government is fully committed to a strong and diverse Ontario that supports families of all faiths. We are people drawn from every corner of the world, and we speak many different languages, over 120 alone in this province. And we bring our customs with us, but we also build new ones. We enjoy a level of peace and harmony that is rare among nations. So let's celebrate what we're building here. Let's also celebrate Ontario. Ontario is now home to several 100,000 Muslims from all over the world. I had a very important event that touched me dearly, and that was the Islamic Revival Convention in Toronto on Christmas Eve. You should be proud of the young people that participated to show their faith, their courage, and their desire for peace and harmony, to enable us to welcome and embrace the prosperity and the good that the faith that Islam brings. And these were people from all over North America that attended. But what really touched me was a level of young people that participated. Over 20,000 in that one event. And I was very impressed by the way they behaved, the way they projected what they felt was important. And what's important is that we share so much more alike than we are different. What was important is that we all want the same result. And what's important is that they, and many of you, care about other faiths and other cultures. And I thank you for the way you behave and the way you are. We as Ontarians, you as Ontarians, welcome others to our society. So thank you for doing that. We have been enriched by the culture, the heritage, and strong family ties that our newcomers offer. Muslims are contributing in many ways to their communities right across Ontario. And your work here today to raise funds for this hospital is just one example of that. Ontarians appreciate your love of faith, of family, and hard work. They appreciate the way you put down roots and strengthen your communities throughout efforts like this. Your success, our efforts, is a beacon of hope for a safe, strong, prosperous, fair, and yes, a healthy society. So to all of you, thank you. And I'm going to read now a message from the Premier of Ontario, who also wants to bring greetings. And at this point, I'd like to welcome to the podium the Honourable Linda Jeffries to join me in making this presentation to our man to receive this. Faith of Life Network fundraiser for Brampton Civic Hospital. On behalf of the Government of Ontario, I'm delighted to extend warm greetings to everyone attending this event in support of Muslims Friends of Osler's campaign to raise $1 million for Brampton Civic Hospital, organized by Faith of Life Network. Ontario's hospitals are an integral part of our communities and play a key role in offering citizens the finest in care, treatment, and support. As Premier, I am proud of our province's hospitals and remain committed to protecting our most important resource, our people's health. I commend the dedicated volunteers and organizers with Faith of Life Network for working tirelessly to ensure the success of this fundraising event. I also applaud the donors of your generous support. Take pride in knowing that your collective efforts will make a vital difference in the lives of patients and their families. Please accept my sincere best wishes for a highly successful fundraiser, signed by Dalton McGuinty, Premier of Ontario. Before we leave, I think we should all hear from the Honourable Linda Jeffries to say a few words. Please welcome to the to the pulpit and to the mic, Linda Jeffries.
It's hard to follow somebody who sounds like they should be on the radio, but he has such a great voice, doesn't he? I just didn't want to let the opportunity pass without thanking the Imam for his leadership. He's shown great leadership from the very beginning with regards to our hospital, and I just wanted to remind people where we were, I guess it was 5 years ago, when we were first opening the doors to the hospital, and I remember how struck I was when we did some of the prayers prior to the hospital really being open. And I remember being so proud, so touched by the care and the generosity and the prayers that were delivered in that hospital before those doors opened, and what a difference it's made. And the fact that you're still here, still caring about our hospital, making sure it has the equipment and the resources and the support that it needs, because when a hospital's doors open, the work has just begun. You know, to recruit nurses and doctors and to build a reputation, particularly when you're trying to close one hospital and open the doors for another one, a very difficult job to do. And we have a wonderful reputation. When I travel to other parts of Canada, they know about Brampton Civic. They know about the great service and the wonderful surgeons that work there and the great results that we have. I think we're often too modest about the great work that goes on there. So I want you to go out there wherever you travel in the world and talk and brag about your hospital, our hospital, because we've come a very, very long way in the last few years. It's a wonderful facility. So we have a great reputation, and I appreciate that you're all here tonight to support our hospital. Thank you very much for buying a ticket and for being here. I too have bought a ticket, but I contribute every month to my hospital. It's that important to me. I give a monthly contribution because I want my hospital to be successful, to be healthy, and to know that I have their back. It's really important. So I appreciate that you're here, you're showing your support, and you've been there all along. That makes such a difference. So the good news is we have enough money to find that $1 million. The bad news is it's still in your wallets. You need to help this hospital, and I appreciate your generosity. It's much appreciated. We have some good people here from the hospital. If you don't know them, come up and say hello to them, because we have some great champions in the Muslim community. You've shown great leadership. I'm very grateful. We have another hospital to build in Peel Memorial. That's just around the corner, and we have a great model that Canada and the world is watching, and it's great because of the generosity and the prayers that you've provided. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Minister Linda Jeffrey. Just to repeat, she is the MPP for Brampton Springdale, the riding over here, and she is the Minister of Labour and Minister responsible for seniors. So thank you again, Minister Linda Jeffrey. I am the co-MC for today. My name is Asim Malik. I am a Shura member of the Sayeda Khadija Centre and a member of Faith of Life Network. And at this point, we'd like to put a little break in the speeches and break for a little very light entertainment. I would like to introduce someone very special. He is also a member of the Sayeda Khadija Centre and Faith of Life Network, and also the president of the Muhammad Rafi Fan Club, and which is a non-profit organization. And just recently, about a year ago, they conducted a concert in support from William Osler Hospital. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Fazil Beg. Thank you.
अगर कमली वाले की रहमत न होती तो किस्मत के मारूं का क्या हाल होता अगर कमली वाले की रहमत न होती तो किस्मत के मारूं का क्या हाल होता रसूल खुदा का सहारा न मिलता तो हम बेसहारों का क्या हाल होता वो आका वो मौला वो दाता हमारे खुदाई के प्यारे खुदा के दुलारे मोहम्मद जो दुखियों के हामी न होते तो इन बेकरारों का क्या हाल होता। मोहम्मद जो दुखियों के हामी न होते तो इन बेकरारों का क्या हाल होता। न ये फूल खिलते न कलियां महकती न गुलजार हंसते न गलियां महकती। नबी के पसीने की खुशबू न मिलती तो दिल खुश बहारों का क्या हाल होता। मोहम्मद का जलवा है जलवा खुदा का, मोहम्मद का पर्दा है पर्दा खुदा का। अगर आप आ जाते पर्दे से बाहर तो फिर चांद सितारों का क्या हाल होता। अगर आप आ जाते पर्दे से बाहर तो फिर चांद सितारों का क्या हाल होता, क्या हाल होता। Thank you.
Thank you, Fazl. Another round of applause for Fazl Beg. Thank you. I'm very excited and happy to announce our next guest, who is the keynote speaker for tonight's evening. Born and raised in Toronto, John Howard Torrey is the host of News Talk 1010's afternoon drive show, The Live Drive with John Torrey. A recent recipient of the Order of Ontario, Torrey began his career at Rogers Broadcasting as a journalist for radio stations CFTR and CHFI. He attended the University of Toronto, Trinity College, and graduated with his BA in 1975. He received his Bachelor of Law degree at Osgoode Hall, was called to the bar in Ontario in 1980, and worked for his father's law firm Torrey Delorier and Binnington for a number of years. In 1981, Torrey got his first taste of politics as Principal Secretary in the Office of Premier of Ontario Bill Davis for 5 years. Over the next 10 years, he held key roles working for Brian Mulroney and Kim Campbell. From 1995 to 1999, Torrey returned to Rogers Communications Inc., this time as President and CEO of Rogers Media, which had become one of Canada's largest publishing and broadcasting companies. Torrey also served as a commissioner of the Canadian Football League from 1996 to 2000. In 2003, Torrey entered the mayoralty race up against David Miller. Torrey was a runner-up in a very close race. He took over the leadership of Ontario Progressive Conservative Party in 2005 and announced his resignation in 2009. Torrey continues to have an interest in broadcasting through his life and jumped at the chance when News Talk 1010 knocked on his door in 2009 and offered him his own show during the afternoon drive called The Live Drive with John Torrey, which airs daily from Monday to Friday, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Torrey lends his support to a number of local charities. Without further ado, I would like to invite John Torrey.
Assalamu alaikum. Well, thank you for that very kind introduction. I can only really repeat what Minister Sousa said, which is that you find especially, it's actually much better when you're out of politics, especially if you're a retired, defeated politician. It never gets better than that because nobody ever says anything but nice things about you. And so I won't recommend the defeat part to Minister Jeffrey, who's still here, but the retired part, it isn't so bad because they do say nice things. The other thing on the street, I should tell you, is that everybody comes up to you on the street afterwards and tells you they voted for you. And of course, you know full well this isn't true, but nonetheless, they feel good saying it to you, and you feel good hearing it, and you just move on. I also would like to say thank you to everybody here for what you have done just by coming out and by supporting the hospitals that are being supported by this event. I've been involved for many years supporting a hospital in Toronto, St. Michael's Hospital. I'm about to run my third fundraising campaign with others for that hospital, and it has been one of the great joys of my life to be able to go out and not just secure support for that hospital, but to see what's done with that money, because there's no place where you see more firsthand and more clearly the benefit that comes from the support that is given to the healthcare sector in particular. And I want to just, as a subset of that, say a word of congratulations and thank you to Anne Randall as well. When I was in politics and came out during the construction, I guess even before the construction started on the Civic Hospital, she was already there, I guess raising all the money to pay for it, and was a most gracious host all the time when I came to the hospital, and was a great advocate for the hospital in terms of making sure it stayed on everybody's radar screen, even if you were somebody from Toronto like me. So I want to say thank you to you for all the years of hard work that you did and for all the success that you had. A hearty word of congratulations on behalf of everybody. Been a lot of speeches already, and while Imam Slimi suggested I might speak for 15 minutes or even longer, and of course it's even more dangerous than that because I now do a talk show where I have to talk for 3 hours every day, and so I'm used to talking in 3-hour blocks now, and it's not that easy, you know. When you sit there, you can't sort of sit there on the radio and suddenly run out of things to say. Just say, well, look, we'll come back in 10 or 15 minutes if we think of something. So you do get used to talking in 3-hour blocks, but I'm going to speak briefly, and I have a message that is I think important, and it's one that I speak of a lot when I'm around the GTA talking about diversity, which I do a lot in my capacity as chair of Civic Action, which is a city building, region building, a group that is nonpartisan and that really tries to move this part of the country forward as best that it can. But before I get into that, I want to just say why I'm here is because Imam Slimi asked me to be here. And he is someone for whom I would do anything that he asked, because I just see him as such a credible, such a balanced, such a sensible, intelligent leader of the community generally, but of the Muslim community as well. And it goes back, I went to his mosque, the mosque he was at the time, by the airport back in, it would have been probably 2003. And of course, when you're in public life, you visit a lot of mosques and synagogues and gurdwaras and churches and whatnot, temples, and it was my pleasure to do that. I'll refer to this later because I learned a lot from those visits. But when I attended his mosque, first of all, I was welcomed very warmly and very graciously, but more important than that, I had a chance to listen several times to him speak at Friday prayers and to really come to understand, probably in his mosque more than anywhere else, that the values that are shared by the members of our Muslim community are the same values that are shared by all other Canadians, and that notwithstanding that all of us read and see and hear things that are based on misunderstanding, that when you would sit and take the time to listen to what he had to say to the people who were there on Friday prayers on those Friday afternoons, you would come to understand a lot about what Islam was about and what it wasn't about. And I want to just say to him, thank you for the leadership you continue to show through the Faith of Life Network and everywhere else. And that is really what I want to speak about, and I want to get into it this way, and I will not take very long. But, you know, if you sort of focus on the question for a moment of what makes us different here in Ontario, what makes this the best place in the world in which to live, and, you know, I often hear the Premier say that, and while we were political opponents, when he says that, anytime he reminds us all of that as our Premier, I'm heartily in agreement with that, because I think if we spend just a minute on any measure whatsoever, notwithstanding our problems and our challenges, we probably couldn't think of a place in the world where you'd be more blessed to live than here in Ontario. And I think there are probably some people in this room who have come from other places to the province of Ontario because of the opportunity it represented and because of the blessings represented by living here. And you know, if you think about what makes it different, what makes it so much better, it's not so much about jobs and industry or about development or certainly not the weather, although it hasn't been bad this winter. It's not, you know, the housing or the education system, as good as it may be, or the politicians, or even the healthcare system. There are differences and distinctions between how we do things here and some of those kinds of facts of life, but those are largely attributes we could share with a number of other places in North America and indeed around the world. And it sounds trite to say this, but in the end, I think what really does make us different is the people, the composition of the population, where unlike almost any other place in the world, the GTA in particular, the Greater Toronto Area, has a diversity of population from all over the world that is second to none anywhere else in the world. And it's been a tremendous blessing to us to have that, because it's brought together the best and the brightest and the best qualities and the best attributes and the best faiths and cultural traditions and so on, and brought them all to one place where we can sort of see the benefits of all of that for us and for the province of Ontario. And so it does really, I think, represent our greatest strength and the thing that makes it the best place in the world in which to live, if you take the fact that some of the other things are just as good, probably some other places. So the diversity, and of course the diversity is spread across a number of different, in a number of different ways. It might be place of origin, it might be faith, it might be skin color, it might be sexual orientation for that matter. These are all things that where we treat people a certain way, where we have people that are welcomed and celebrated for their diversity. And you know, and I know, that that presents an opportunity for us, and it's an opportunity I think we're taking advantage of, but it also carries with it its challenges. You know, let me deal with the challenge part first, because I think it's, in a way, almost more important. We should recognize that and deal with it. There's an old expression that there's more than one way to skin a cat. I don't know why they talk about skinning cats, but nonetheless, it's an old expression. I didn't make it up. But, you know, I think if you take that expression, we often come to conclude, no matter who we are as people, that our way, that we're used to doing things, is the best way. And while there might be a number of ways to skin a cat or do almost anything else, human nature, force of habit, the fact we're creatures of habit, convinces us that our way of doing things is the best way of doing things. And if you think about it applied to something other than people's cultural or religious differences, there's nothing so bad about that. I mean, the force of habit that has people do things different ways and so on. And I think that when people act this way and treat each other this way, or perhaps act and form views on the basis of stereotypes or misunderstandings, I don't think it really is an intolerance on their part that's showing through. I don't really think it is discrimination on their part that is being exercised. I think it's more a kind of a laziness. It's a feature of human nature that says that people will accept things the way they've always done them or how they've always thought about them, as opposed to showing a bit of the energy that's sometimes necessary to explore the differences that exist between people, why those differences exist, and perhaps even more importantly, trying to figure out the things that we share in common beneath what are often very superficial differences. Let's face facts. All of us, I think, would prefer to do things the way we've always done them, or the way we consider to be our own way, just because that's what we're used to. And I think that it leaves us prone, of course, and this is one of the downsides to this, and this is where the challenge comes in, it leaves us prone to question the way other people do things. Because we think, well, our way is the better way, or our way is the way that we're comfortable with, or our way is the way that we're used to, and so if somebody else does something a different way, we're prone to question that because it's different. And that creates, in turn, sometimes a fear of people who do things differently, or of things that are done differently. I had an interesting experience in all those visits that I made to all those different churches and places of worship when I was in public life. And I still, because you make friendships, as I did with Imam Slimi, I still end up going to a lot of these places, even though I'm long removed from politics. But the experience was interesting for me because you went there and you listened and you watched and you learned. And I think that is one of the great things about having the opportunity to do those kinds of things. But what I learned, more so I suppose than anything else, is that all of those different faiths and the people from all the different cultures from around the world that have gathered here are essentially motivated and essentially run their lives based on the same set of shared values that everybody else does. You come to realize that the Quran and the Torah and the Bible and a lot of the other books of worship, if you sort of go through those books of worship, that they're founded on the same values, that basically when you listen to somebody, whether it's at Friday prayers or Saturday at the synagogue or Sunday at church, the messages that are coming from the people who are preaching are essentially the same in terms of the values they're trying to convey to all of us, and indeed the values that are shared by people sitting in those congregations. And so you learn that lesson, first of all, and that's an important lesson to learn because it takes away the fear that we often have of people who are different, or people who go a different place to worship, or who dress differently, or who have different kinds of customs than we have. You come to realize as well from visiting with those communities, it isn't so much about their faith or about what goes on in their places of worship, that the people as you meet them, and I know the minister and the senator who's here tonight and others who are in public life have had this experience, you come to realize that all of those people who are all Canadians share the same aspirations for themselves and for their family, and they're fairly straightforward and have little to do with faith or little to do with where they came from. It's just because they're human beings. They want their families to be strong. They want to have opportunities for themselves. They want a happy life for their children. They want opportunity for their children. They want their children to have a chance to do better than they did, even if they did well, because I think that's what we all want. And I think as well you come to understand that all of the people, wherever they come from, whatever faith they worship and so forth and so on, that they all operate as well in their day-to-day lives under the same rules. They work hard, they play by the rules, they treat their neighbors and other people that they work with respect. And I think at the end of it all, what I came to realize is that there was a one sort of core value that everybody shared across every sort of descriptor that you could possibly apply to them, and that was that what we would call the golden rule, that you do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and that you treat people at all times with respect. And yet, notwithstanding all of this, for some reason, I guess it does boil down to human nature, we're still inclined to be a little bit afraid of differences and to believe stereotypes, even if we know them not to be true. So what to do about this? Because this really represents both the opportunity for Ontario and for the GTA and the challenge. The opportunity is that if we can harness this diversity that exists even more effectively than we already are, then this will be the greatest place in the world, not just because of its physical nature and not just because we have governments that we support in caring for people and so on, but because we will have something very special here where we'll have proven to the rest of the world you can bring people from all over the world of all different faiths and creeds and skin colors and cultures and so on and put them together and make a powerhouse team that can take us forward in a way like nowhere else on earth. And so what are we to do to make sure that we can take full advantage of that and address the challenge? Well, I think first of all, we have to inform ourselves. And that means inform ourselves about what's different about other people who live here. And the reality now is, with 50% of the population being from somewhere else in the GTA, born outside of the country, the highest percentage of anywhere in the world, with 50%, approaching 50% of people being from what we call a visible minority, but people who look a bit different, then I think it's up to us to inform ourselves about some of those differences and what they do represent, and more importantly, perhaps what they don't represent. I know in my own case, one of the things I did, I was so impressed by Imam Slimi and by his mosque and his and the people who were there, is that I took my whole family there on one of my subsequent visits. Because my family, like most families that have lived in Ontario for generations, what did we know about Islam? What did we know about the Muslim faith or the Muslim community? The answer was, I started to learn about it and to know about it because I was visiting, but my family knew nothing. And while I didn't think they were falling prey to some of the stereotypes and the misinformation that circulates out there, I thought it was good they should see for themselves the positive story. And so we went to that mosque and we were, of course, again, graciously welcomed, and they found it a magnificent learning experience. I think we've got to reach out, and this is a good example, this very event of this community, and I know not all the people here are from the Muslim faith, but it is a group that is helping the Osler Health Group as a community, but to reach out and get involved in things like your local healthcare institution or like other aspects of the community, and I think it's up to the community to reach back. And this is a place where we've done a relatively poor job, and I spend a lot of my time talking about how we have to make sure that the different parts of our community, as diverse as it is, are represented in the leadership ranks of our hospital boards and our foundation boards and on our city councils and in our legislatures and on boards of directors of corporations. Because it's not going to work if we see the leadership segment of our society looking across that segment and we don't see any people there who are from all the different corners of this community that are so diverse in nature. And so I think that on the one hand, you have to do what you're doing by being here tonight, and I thank you again for that, by reaching out and getting involved, but the community at large has to reach back and invite you to be involved particularly, and I think that's been done here again. I'm sure it's been a two-way street. I also think that people have to speak up on both sides when they see that there is misinformation, when they see there is misrepresentation, when they see there are stereotypes. You know, the danger in isolating ourselves and not sort of speaking up and becoming a part of the community and reaching out and getting involved and so on is that a lot of things that are said just come to be accepted. And I think that it is speaking up to me, and I often say this when I come to events that are sponsored largely by the Muslim community, that I think a lot of people who perhaps choose to keep their own counsel and just go about doing all the things I said, working hard, playing by the rules, raising good families, making a contribution to our economy and to our social and cultural and political life, maybe have to go a step further and speak up a little bit more on behalf of their faith and on behalf of their communities to make sure that the points of view we would want to see represented in front of the rest of the community are represented very well. Otherwise, what happens is I think you let stereotypes prevail. You let stereotypes prevail, and you shouldn't allow that to happen. I certainly am committed to making sure I do my part, and some of you may have heard on the radio, I regularly talk about this community and my experience with it and my relationship with it, and try to put down in a very definite fashion those stereotypes. In fact, I'll tell you a short story. I was recently honored about 2 months ago by the Jewish community in Toronto at something they call the Negev dinner, and it was a very nice dinner there, and in my speech I said that I thought they could help to carry the message about the Muslim community perhaps more powerfully and with a real sense of something from their heart, because of the fact that they too, even today, continue on a lesser extent, but in days gone by, certainly experienced the pain that comes from people stereotyping you. But you know, to be candid about it, the other reason why I think people have to speak up is because otherwise you leave the field to what I would call the radicals, people who do not represent what this community and what this faith and what you people who are here doing so much good tonight and every day are doing and what you're about in your own lives. And I think that if you don't speak up, then you leave the airwaves on a radio station like where I work or the pages of the newspaper to be filled by comments from others, because you can be sure somebody is going to speak up and say something, and oftentimes it isn't the right person. I'll just say a couple more things before I conclude, because I probably in fact I can see this very handy, very large clock here. I think they probably put that here for my benefit. See, look, it's huge. I mean, it's the biggest one. May I say, in addition to sort of encouraging you to do that, speaking up, and to do what you're already doing by reaching out, that I think we, meaning the people who are privileged to be in positions in business and elsewhere in politics, have more of an obligation than we're discharging at the moment to make sure that access to opportunity is a reality. I think it's probably true to say that because you're able to be at an event like this, most of the people in this room are quite fortunate. But I will say, because I say it in every speech that I give about diversity, that we can take pride, and we do, and we boast about it perhaps a little too much, about how well we've done attracting people from all over the world and what a great population it's given us of people who bring all kinds of things to Ontario from elsewhere. But we haven't done as good a job, frankly, as we should have in making sure that when those people arrived here, that we were able to take full advantage of all of their skills and all of their talents. And it isn't even a matter of us taking advantage, it's allowing them to aspire to be what they want to be and to be what they're capable of being. And I think that that too is going to be part of meeting the challenge of the diversity going forward, is that we make sure that everybody can take their full place in Ontario society. And if we're being frank about this, if you look at the ranks of the unemployed or the underemployed, there are far more people represented in the ranks of the unemployed or the underemployed, people who are not employed in a way that takes full advantage of their skills and background, who have come from another country, who have different backgrounds, who are, frankly, visible minorities. And that is not a sustainable proposition. It's not fair, because those people have been invited to come to our country after a rigorous process of selection. And I think we owe it to them, and we owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to each other, to make sure that when they get here we do everything we possibly can for the sake of their families, for the sake of their own dignity, but also for the sake of our province to achieve everything they're capable of achieving. And of course the consequence of leaving this unaddressed, I think, would be something that we would deeply regret in years to come. So I want to just conclude by saying that these are the things that rest in front of us as challenges, but when you have something very special, there are always some very special challenges that go with it in terms of trying to keep it the way it is and make it even better. And those are challenges that I think we willingly take on in Ontario, all of us. You've evidenced that by being here tonight and being very much a part of building an excellent healthcare institution or a series of institutions in the west end of the GTA. So I want to thank you again for that. I want to say that I think if we want to be true to the Canadian values that we all share, we will address some of these things and make sure that, more so than anything else, we treat each other at all times with respect, that we make sure that we understand each other as best we can and learn about each other, that we reach out to each other and get involved in things like this and make sure that the community reaches back to get people into the leadership ranks, and that we continue to have that sense of caring for each other. The final story that I'll tell, is one about the healthcare system, and it's from a movie that some of you may have seen, was called Sicko, and it's one of those Michael Moore documentaries. And of course, they're very opinionated, and they're meant to make people think and debate the issues and so on. And it was a movie that was very critical of the American healthcare system and at the same time very complimentary of our healthcare system. And one part of the movie, for those who saw it, you'll remember this, he was riding in a golf cart on the Canadian side of the border with a man who I think might have been, I don't think he was a doctor, but he was from Windsor. And they're riding along, and Michael Moore says to him, "Doesn't it bother you that you pay your taxes and your neighbor pays his taxes, and then you stay perfectly healthy, but your neighbor gets sick and needs this operation, and your tax dollars go to pay to have his operation done?" And the Canadian man, as you would expect, as any Canadian would say, well, to Michael Moore, and I'm sure Michael Moore wanted to get this answer, but nonetheless, he said, "Well, don't you get it? That's exactly the way our system is supposed to work. We look after each other. We support each other. We help each other because we feel we're all in this together. We're all Canadians. We don't let people fall between the cracks. We don't let people get stereotyped and suffer because of that. We don't let people remain underemployed. We make sure that we reach out in some way and help them to get up and to give them a bit of a hand up. And I think if we act every day consistent with the Canadian values that we all know about and that we all take to heart, then we'll be able to take full advantage of that diversity that I started off talking about and make this place as great as I know it can be. Thanks very much, and thanks for being here.